Recently, AWS released Greengrass version 2.0. Greengrass 2 over Greengrass 1 is a complete wholesale redesign of the Greengrass software. Greengrass used to support something like a wizard where you could add your Lambda functions, you could add your field bus connections, add your site-wise connectors, and all of these things. That's all changed. The resources are now called components, and they're built with a component recipe. Basically, these are build instructions that are sent from the cloud to the device and allow you to build almost anything on the hardware. So in this video, I'm going to be using a B&R panel PC running Debian 10. We're going to build the core. We're going to create a deployment using a component recipe and a component, attach that to the deployment, and we're going to send it down to the device. So if you have hardware, follow along. Let's get started. Now the three terms I'll use here are Greengrass core, Greengrass component, and Greengrass deployment. The core is simply the edge device that runs the Greengrass core software. Everything that we deploy is going to be pushed to the Greengrass core. A component is an object that we push. This is software or a Docker container or pre-built public components. Finally, the Greengrass deployment. This is the packaged group of components that we're going to push down to the Greengrass core. Before we can set this up, we need user credentials. So we go to IAM, go to users, select the user, and we need to add security credentials to this. You can download these to a CSV file. Once I have these values, I'm going to now move to the hardware to start provisioning this. I'm going to SSH into my PPC 3100. I'm going to check to make sure that Python 3 is installed, and then I'm going to shift into superuser, apt update, and apt upgrade. Now I'm going to install dependencies with a script I've copied and pasted. All of these scripts can be found in the video description. Once this is complete, I'm going to add a user called ggc user, and I'm going to add a group called ggc group. Next, I'm going to install the AWS command line interface using pip3. The Greengrass core is Java-based, so I'm going to install Amazon's Corretto 8 software. This is Amazon's version of the OpenJDK 8 platform. The download link and the install instructions are also in the description of the video. So now we can check the Java version, and we can see now we've got the OpenJDK 8. Next, I'll update the security tools and add some download tools to support the next dependencies. Later on in this video, one of the components that we're going to deploy is going to be a Docker container. And for this, we'll need to have the Docker engine installed. So follow these steps to install the Docker engine. This is not mandatory. This is totally optional. But Docker serves as a really neat way to prepackage software components and or operating system environments or mimic tools that you might need. So we're going to install this. Once Docker is installed, we can test it using docker -v to get the version or docker ps-a to see any running containers. Now modify the ggc user to be able to run Docker commands by adding it to the Docker group. Next, we'll create some environmental variables with our credentials we downloaded from IAM. First, we're going to do the access key ID and then the access key. Then we're going to export the account ID with our AWS account ID and our region. Now our device is prepared and we can move on to installing the Greengrass core software. You can find full instructions by going to the IoT core, Greengrass, and getting started. If you click on Set up one core device, you can enter a name here. I'm going to call this Loop Demo Core. And then you're going to add it to a group, which is optional. We're going to call this Loop Demo Core Group. What this does is creates the instructions below that we can copy and paste into the shell and install the core. The core is being created and invoked from the device itself, so these instructions are only helpers. You could create these instructions yourself and deploy this from the device, but this is going to be using the credentials that we added before, making connection with AWS and creating the core device using the Greengrass command line interface. Now that this is created, you can see it here, and we can even go to deployments. There's a deployment that's auto-created for this. We're going to add some components to this now, so let's revise this deployment. We're going to click Next, and we want to add some public components to this. So in this case, I want to add the local debug console. I want to add the Nucleus software as well. So now we have these three components in the deployment. Now we're going to deploy. Now you can monitor this from the deployment itself. It will give you a status of the core. It will also tell you what the status is of the deployments themselves. I want to be able to see this on the device itself. So on the Greengrass core desktop, I'm going to invoke the Greengrass command line interface and type get debug password. This is at Greengrass V2 binary Greengrass CLI get debug password. This is going to produce a password that we can then use for the web interface. So on the same device, I'm going to pull up a web browser. I'm going to go to localhost and port 1441. Username debug, and then I'll copy and paste that password in here. This is a console representation of the Greengrass core. So anything that's deployed here, including components and deployments, should show up. Now I want to create a custom component. The first step is to create an S3 bucket. Here you see Greengrass components, artifacts with my account number and my region. I need to add access to this from the Greengrass service. So I need to go to IAM and create a policy. I'll create a new policy, and I'm just going to edit the JSON here and paste my policy. You can follow the same structure and just change your ARN for the S3 bucket. Once I'm done, I click Next, and I just need to add a name to this. This name is arbitrary, so it doesn't really matter what you put here. Once I do this, now I need to go to this policy, and I need to attach it to a role. So I'm going to click Policy Usage, Attach, and I need to just search the role that I want to attach this to. If you don't see the desired role in the fields here, you can just use the search window. I'm just going to search Greengrass and select the Greengrass Token Exchange role. Now the Greengrass core has permissions to access the S3 bucket. So now I'm going to go to the S3 bucket and upload my files. I have a pre-built Python program that I'm going to load into here. And the naming matters a little bit here. Be sure that your directories are structured with artifacts, component name, component version, and then your source files. Now you can click Create Component, and I'm going to enter the recipe as a YAML. I'm going to copy all and paste my YAML recipe here. A link to the GitHub repo containing the source code and the YAML recipe are both in the description of the video. Once your recipe is correct, you can click Create Component. You can review the information here. Once you're ready, click Deploy. This will ask you to attach it to a deployment. We're going to use our earlier deployment for this core. Make sure that it's selected and click Next all the way to the end so you can deploy. This is now staging this component for deployment with the deployment attached to the Greengrass core. Once we refresh, we can see that it attached the deployment. We have our Hello World Python code here, and we can go to the temp folder on the device and see the Greengrass Hello World log. This shows us that our Python program ran as soon as it was deployed. One of the coolest features of this is the ability to remotely deploy Docker containers on the Greengrass core hardware. So I'm going to create a new component here using Python recipe. And you can see here under install, I'm creating the Docker volume, and I'm also pulling the Node-RED image. Under run, I'm going to run this image, and I'm just going to attach this to port 1880, attach it to the volume. Click Create Component and Deploy. We'll attach this to the same deployment and deploy. Now if I go to the console on the hardware, we can see now the Node-RED Docker component running. Now I'm going to open the browser again and go to port 1880, and we'll see Node-RED running on the remote hardware. You can make use of public or private repos or create your own saved Node-RED image. What a cool tool. These components can be combined to build really rich software packages, so I'm excited to see how this is used in the future. Thanks a lot for watching.